another deal done on Monday before all the jubilation of Moises Caicedo's announcement was Kepa Arrizabalaga. He joined Real Madrid on loan for the season. He on Friday, Pochettino noted that he was ahead of Sanchez in Chelsea's quest to establish a number one goalkeeper. 48 hours later, he wasn't in the squad at all. Pochettino had a conversation on Saturday where they decided that the kind of player not committed to the club wouldn't be involved in the squad, and things moved quite quickly in terms of establishing that loan to Real Madrid, as Kepa was afforded the opportunity to consider his possibilities. I think Bayern Munich also was said to be interested in him. I think one that maybe 6 weeks ago would have seemed a very easy and obvious deal to do to get his wages off the books. We don't believe there's any, or we've not been informed of any kind of clause for Real Madrid to be obligated to take him on next year. He has 2 years remaining on his contract at the minute. I will say, as we've been recording, I think he's been presented in Madrid this lunchtime, and I think he's already said, I hope that with my performances, Real Madrid will decide to keep me after the loan. And I think that's probably going to go a long way in deciding how successful that is. If they do find a new home for Kepa, that'll be massive and something they've struggled to do for a long, long time. And they have wanted a new number one. There's obviously been no kind of reassurance for him that he is that position long-term at Chelsea, because he hasn't been offered any kind of new contracts, despite Edouard Mendy leaving. I think the only concern for me with this deal is that Chelsea, for the last, maybe not quite 6 weeks, I think he was on international duty, but have prepared with the idea that he would enter the season as number one. He's kind of been learning the ways of Tony Jimenez and Pochettino's plans for playing out from the back. And now we're left in just a little bit of an uncertain position of who's Chelsea's number one option will be. Will they go and spend big this summer? Is Sanchez going to take that role? And I think, I don't know, it just feels like one of those unnecessary complications for the season. How do you feel about it, Bobby?
Yeah, it's one that happened very quickly. Like you said, it's something that Chelsea were sort of open to at least all summer, but didn't have anything until recently. Obviously, Thibaut Courtois did his ACL, so it was a very sort of desperate move by Real Madrid, I guess, and one that didn't really involve too much risk. They take him on loan with no obligation to buy or whatever. He obviously has a real big chance now at Real. He obviously did really well in Spain before with Bilbao. Hasn't quite worked out for him in England, so good luck to him at Real. Hopefully, he can sort of rekindle the form that saw Chelsea spend ludicrous money on him. But it's going to be very hard for him to convince Real, because they've obviously got, when Courtois does come back, he's obviously a world-class goalkeeper, and I don't think Real Madrid would really be willing to pay the wages of Kepa for him to be number two. So it's one I can't really see happening, but good luck to him. And it is a weird one for Chelsea, because obviously all the stuff you mentioned about him training all pre-season and planning to go in the season with him as number one. Also the fact that I think his contract's up in 2025, so by the time he returns, he'll have 12 months left on his deal, and it's going to be hard for Chelsea to ship him off, like we've known for years, because of his high wages. I think I saw a figure the other day, I don't know how true it is, but he's on almost 200 grand a week, which is a lot of money. And it's going to be difficult, and it'll be even more difficult really with 12 months left in his deal, unless Chelsea are willing to accept a really sort of low price for him. And Kepa is willing to take a significant cut on his wages at another club. So it's one that I could definitely see by the time 2025 comes around, him leaving on a free transfer, because I don't think Chelsea would really want to negotiate those sort of terms again with Kepa, especially considering he's proven himself. And it's interesting. Robert Sanchez very much looked like a backup goalkeeper. Whether or not Chelsea going at now in the market, it's quite a limited market in terms of goalkeepers who are willing to leave. Like Chelsea have looked at Mike Maignan from AC Milan, but I think he's quite settled there, and he also wants Champions League football. So I think that's a no-go, and Milan would want stupid money for him because he's one of the top properties in the goalkeeper market right now. They've looked at that Valencia goalkeeper as well, whose name I'm not even going to bother trying to pronounce. But I think you all know who I mean. And he's one they've looked at, but again, he would be very expensive. He'd probably be more open to a move, being young and wanting to prove himself, and obviously being at Valencia, who I don't think have been doing that well really in recent seasons. So, yeah, I think it's one where it's going to be hard for Chelsea to get their top targets, especially now with 2 and a bit weeks left of the window, I think. So I could definitely see Robert Sanchez being the number one. It's hardly ideal for Chelsea, but again, I think they've known all summer. Well, they've known this year really since January. We were being told how they wanted a goalkeeper, a midfielder, and a striker way before the transfer window opened. So I don't think necessarily, obviously without knowing exactly what goes on behind the scenes, I don't think they've necessarily prepared themselves in the best way for this. Because, yeah, like I said earlier, they've always been willing to let Kepa go. So I feel like there needed to be a bit more of a plan in place if they did let him go, because, like I said, it almost got flung on them out of nowhere with Thibaut Courtois' injury. But we're not seeing much action from Chelsea in terms of going out and buying a new keeper now. So, and the fact they loaned Sannino as well, like there was a thought that, Sannino could perhaps have a role at Chelsea this season, whether that's number 2, but they've loaned him out, and they've been left with, Robert Sanchez, who I don't think really is seen as a long-term number 1. Marcus Bettinelli, who's injured and not good enough to probably be a number 2. He's probably suited to a number 3 role. Then they got Lucas Bergstrom, Jamie Cumming, who could obviously go out on loan. So it is a bit uncertain at the moment, but I hope Robert Sanchez can do well. I think against Liverpool he looked fine. He didn't really have too much to do, but he looked fine, and I guess we'll see in the coming weeks what sort of keeper Chelsea have in Robert Sanchez.